Hi there, I'm Uncle Joel with Pen and Reel, and I just finished reading Recursion by Blake Crouch. So this is the second book I've read by Blake Crouch, the first being Dark Matter. You can check out my review here. And I got this book at about the same time as Dark Matter. I hadn't read either yet, so I was still kind of diving in blind when it came to purchasing this book. So the basic setup for the book is that there's some strange phenomenon going on. First, I think it's maybe some sort of like pathogen or some sort of pandemic, but they're not really sure exactly what it is. But regardless of what the cause might be, people are getting memories from completely different lives than the one that they're living right now. Just out of nowhere, all of a sudden they have memories from the past year or the past 20 years that are wildly different from the lives that they're presently living. And the problem is that they have these new memories, but they also have the old memories. And it's very difficult to tell what's real and what's not. And it would be one thing if just, one person was experiencing this, but it seems to be a spreading and growing phenomenon. So the story is split up between two different characters. The first, a detective named Barry, who happens to stumble upon someone who experiences these alternate memories. He winds up investigating and trying to figure out more about what's going on, and seems to find evidence that there is a little bit more at play than just a pathogen or something. And the other character is a doctor named Helena who studies memories. She's specifically looking for a cure for Alzheimer's, or a way to reclaim lost memories. Personally, as I was reading the book, I found Barry's portion not quite as interesting as Helena's, but simply because I really enjoyed the very scientific approach to Helena's story. They gave you just enough details to where it sounded plausible, but didn't go like super in-depth to where it was all highly scientific and difficult to understand unless you have a degree. So the book is a thriller. It is very fast-paced, and early on they set up these very interesting stakes and just develop a mystery that grows and grows. Honestly, Recursion feels like it is two different books crammed into one. The first half and the second half totally play together. They are absolutely one story, but they feel wildly different. Honestly, there is a development fairly early on that is kind of a twist that reframes and structures the entire story going forward that personally I thought was going to be the big mystery reveal near the end, but they revealed it so much earlier than I was expecting that about halfway through I didn't know where they were going from there. Honestly, I really appreciate that. I always appreciate when a story surprises me and keeps me guessing, and I can't figure things out right from the get-go. If I'm not sure where the plot's going, it's a good thing. But yeah, so it feels like there are two separate parts of the story. And about halfway through the book, I thought, man, this seems like it's really reaching the conclusion. How is there another couple hundred pages to go? But the story does progress. There's a lot more to come, and I had no clue what that would be. So give props to Blake Crouch on that point. Overall, the book is very fast-paced. It's definitely a page-turner. It's the sort of book that you're going to get through pretty quickly if you stick with it. Now, I've only read 2 Blake Crouch books at this point, so I could be wrong, but it seems to be his style that he likes to hit the ground running and just charge forward, and doesn't spend too much time in the more mellow moments. Like he just wants the plot to keep going and keep moving forward. And on that note, first with Dark Matter and now again with Recursion, they feel like they are set up to be made into feature films at some point. I know Dark Matter was, and looking up Recursion, it seems to have been optioned, but is not necessarily in production yet. So it may be that Blake Crouch specifically writes these books with Hollywood in mind. So with the second half being a bit more unpredictable, I did have a little bit of a concern of where the plot was going, and sure enough, it did kind of meander a little bit. It's still good and still well done for the most part. Whereas the first half was a bunch of setup and really exploring the concept, the second half was the ramifications and the fallout. Now certainly there was plenty of tension, but due to the nature of the story, he also kind of stole some of the tension away. There was a certain part towards the end that I feel was supposed to be very emotional, but due to things that he did earlier, it kind of pulled away that emotion, and it kept it from being as effective as it could have been. You know, it's like if I'm going to make a chocolate cake and the first one that comes out is not good. And then I tweak the recipe a little bit and it's a little bit better. And then I tweak the recipe a little bit and it's a little bit better. And go on for, you know, several iterations until finally I make this really good cake. And you're trying a slice out of every single cake that, yeah, by the end, it does taste good and you enjoy it, but you've been having cake for the past couple of hours and you're kind of sick of chocolate cake, so it's nowhere near as effective as if you hadn't had any, or you had only had the first one that wasn't good and then the one that was great. The impact would have been so much stronger. It's kind of like that. I feel like what Blake Crouch was trying to do was a bit undermined by all of the lead up to that point. It's still good and I still understood it conceptually, but it lacked the emotional connection because of all of the undermining. And that's my convoluted way of trying to explain some of my issues with the story without giving away any spoilers. And overall, the resolution for the story was, I don't quite want to say disappointing, it felt a little bit lacking. Like, given the way that the plot had gone up to this point, I don't know that there really was another way that they could have done it and still had the ending be satisfying, but short of getting like really trippy into like 2001 Space Odyssey type reality and mind altering trippiness, which would not fit for Blake Crouch's intended mainstream audience, I don't really know that there is another way that they could have done this that would have been that satisfying. But at the same time, for me, it wasn't entirely satisfying. Not bad, just it didn't really do it for me. That being said, some of the criticisms that I'm expressing here sparked ideas for me for how I can approach a story that I have had gestating for a long time. I've had the story idea for a really long time, but I didn't quite know how to develop the story, and my dissatisfaction with elements of recursion has pointed me in the right direction for how to do that story correctly. So in a lot of ways, I'm happy that Recursion was a little bit disappointing for me, because that disappointment has led to a lot of productivity in my own writing. Overall, the book was really good, if a little bit unsatisfying in the second half. I definitely enjoyed it, and I do think that if anything that I've said sounds at all interesting to you, you should give it a try. It is a fun, enjoyable read. Just, there are some points that maybe I'm being a little bit too nitpicky on, but I do tend to do that. I don't know how to turn off that critic mind most of the time. But yeah, I'd say it's a good book. It's just not perfect. There are ways that it could have been improved, but then again, I feel like too much tweaking could have also ruined it. So yeah, it's good, worth reading. I'd say check it out. Until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.